Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to the Landed Gentry YouTube page. So this is the first start of any of it. Kind of crazy. So my name's Chris. What does Landed Gentry do? We import and purvey the finest investment grade Land Rover, specifically Defenders. In like worldwide. That's all I do. If it's not going to appreciate, then we don't really mess with it, or I don't mess with it at all. So yeah, so this page should be fun. It's mostly going to be about, building trucks or building cars and building things that like really get my blood moving and what makes me happy in life. Like most of you guys, or like probably like everybody, like COVID was weird. COVID was hella weird, and I didn't like it one bit, and I suffered like a lot of life change because of it. But at the same time, there's a lot of opportunity too. So yeah, I'm an Oklahoma boy, lived in Texas probably half my life. Worked overseas a number of years, sometimes more than I should have. But yeah, so I got this old disco. There's not been a car that I've owned, including Defenders, that have made me happier than driving this disco 2 around. I mean, the thing just like brings a smile to my face. Now, there's obviously some shortcomings. The motor is probably going to go soon. It's got 165,000 miles on it. But before I do that, I want to see if it'll make it to Montana. I want to see if it'll make it to Alaska, and then I'll LS swap it or diesel swap it or replace it to make it a lot more reliable. Today we're going to do the front bumper. Now the challenge is, again, because of the COVID lessons, I got rid of all my stuff, man. Like I got rid of my TIG welder, I got rid of my MIG welder, I built a car. Let's show you this car real quick. I mean, the thing was gorgeous. Got it onto the cover of Car and Driver magazine. It was roughly based on some general plans, but I mean, I did a ton of engineering to get that F1 style suspension going, and it was crazy. I mean, 0 to 60, 3.5 seconds. I mean, that was unheard of at the time. This was like, I don't know, middle 2000s. I mean, that's like before electric, before Ferrari started going crazy, before everyone started going crazy. But I mean, the thing was fun, like 9.25 pounds. Like, that's just nuts. Like 920 pounds. That's just absolutely insane. Full sequential shift. It was fun, and like I learned to weld on it, and it was great. I just never really drove it. It was like one of those things where I like to build, and did a bunch of vintage motorcycles. Here are some of my prouder ones. This is an RD400. I mean, that thing was insane. It was hard to keep the front wheel down. It was absolutely hard to keep that front wheel down. It looked amazing. My good friend Kit did the paint on it. Everything else was powder coated. All the fabrication was done by me. Here's one of my first bikes. Yeah, it was like a CB350. Loved it. Didn't love it as much as the Yamaha, but like loved it. I thought it looked hella cool. Like of all of them, I thought that bike looked the coolest, even throughout all the iterations. Yeah, and then the CB360, I built my brother. I mean, it just, like, the list kind of goes on and on. I just kind of always been building stuff. So, always been a camper too. So I think that the overlanding thing, like, is going to, like, touch a couple of different bugs. And, let's see if I can do, Alaska to Argentina. I doubt it. But while we're here today, so I bought a bunch of metal for the front bumper. I saw a bunch online. Most of them actually I really loved. I love the ARB bumper. I think that's classic. It's stylish. It's amazing. They want like $1,200 for it, and I was like, no way, no. I can do a better job than this, like on my own. The problem is, what you're gonna see right here is metal prices have gone through the roof. So I have to figure out, well, I mean, I basically, I bought 360 dollars in material, and some of it was the cuts, just because I didn't feel like dealing with it with the angle grinder. But like, yeah, prices have gotten really expensive. So this ride today, like what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you how I built the bumper. And again, it's not gonna be chronological. It's gonna span multiple days, just because, well, I need to find a welder that I can tack with, and then I would prefer to TIG it, but if I can find someone to stick it for me, then we'll do that too. But yeah, let me show you the cardboard templates and drop off this metal, and we'll see how it goes. All right, so just a bunch of steel. I did pay for some cuts just because, again, I didn't feel like dealing with it. It was only like $17 to fire up the shear. So like all the sheet metal stuff, like I had trimmed down roughly the size. Let's get this out and do the counts. Yeah, so just some bits and pieces. You can see I had it cut. It's just, some of it's just like some random, like 1x2 by 1/8, and then some of it is just like some tabs that I had cut down. The winch plate is 1/4 inch. Some people say you should have gone 3/8, but it's whatever. And then just like the front of the bumper, which in looking at it right here, looks like hella tall. So I don't know what we're gonna do about that, but these are the wings. Yeah, and then just again, some strips, and this is 1/8 inch. Is supposed to be the top. Let's look at the bumper real quick. It's like looking pretty shabby, and this lighting is absolutely terrible. But I mean, look at that. You can see it needs, yeah, just a bunch of work. And so, yeah, let's fix this up. So this is kind of how I build my metal bumpers. I'm not a huge fan of, burning through cutoff wheels. So the steel shop or the metal shop where I get my materials from is always nice enough to cut things down. You can see I've obviously made this thing in cardboard first because it's much easier to work with. I'm sure every bumper builder does the exact same thing. And so yeah, there's some so these are basically the templates. You can see on this one I added 3.5 inches, and this is going to be, so yeah, let's go through what each thing is, right? So this is going to be the winch plate. It's 1/4 inch. I hope that's thick enough. Decided to go a little thicker. I was going to go 3/16. These are sort of some ends for the bottom. This guy right here is kind of terminates the whole bumper, so it'll kind of come in like this, and then get evened up over here with the arch and everything. So next, these are this is where it actually bolts to the chassis. So I have a few of these made. You can see the template right here, and I gave myself a little bit of room for the bolts to wiggle it up and down, because every time I made a bumper, they've always needed a little bit of adjustment. Let's see, this is the wing side. Yeah, so it's gonna look a lot like this here. I just need to do this one little zip. I couldn't get the metal shop to do that. They don't really, it's 17 bucks to fire up the shear, and I just get as much stuff done as I can. You can see that I made some provisions for a round fog light. I think I'm gonna go with the yellow light there. So yeah, all of this, let's look at the original bumper here, and I apologize for the garage. It's a little less than ideal working conditions. So you can see where it bolts in on each side to the chassis itself. So now I just got to go underneath, clamp those up, and make sure that I got all of my measurements right. So yeah, let's get started on building a bumper. Yeah, so if you notice from the start, I had 2 pilot holes. In fact, you can still kind of see each of them right there. But drilling through 3/16 steel with a step bit and no drill press or mill was just kind of a pain. So let's see how this fits up. If it fits up well, then I'll do the rest of the pieces. All right, so at first pass, it looks like it's gonna work really well. I like the stick out. I like how it's pretty flush with everything, but there's the problem, and that's the winch plate. So pretend this is the winch plate. Obviously it fits in kind of like this on the bottom, but this one is not long enough. But the problem is over here, that gap's a little big. So honestly, I need to figure out a way to drop these down when it comes time to weld in the winch plate, because a lot of the strength from this bumper comes from these little winglets that are the mounts. So you gotta see how that goes. Okay, so since the drill decided to overheat, I'm not gonna be able to work on that for a few minutes. I think what I'm gonna do is mark off the winch plate, get that thing marked off, cut off with the grinding wheel, and then probably take a break for lunch for a little bit. Okay, here's where I kind of screwed up, but I guess before that, I have to keep taking breaks because this drill just completely overheats and just doesn't want to run anymore. So in order to make good use of time, I'm going to move on to some of the trimming stuff that I need to do. Now, that mistake that I mentioned previously, so this is the front of the bumper. You can see I put a split in it to kind of add a small return so that, if you're looking at it sideways, it kind of looks like this, right? Well, what I meant to do was kind of get that trimmed off, and then I was going to weld the inside piece, but I didn't do that. I had this made a little long, so you can see I put a score line all the way down the bottom of it, and I'll score the inside of it and then fold it inward at whatever amount we figure out is the best way, and then I'll weld the back side of it just to get that strength back. So actually, scratch that idea. The wing is really the part that kind of is going to bend down a little bit or inward. Is really the part that I need to key off of. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the wings, and then we'll sort out the main piece. So we got the first cut of the sort of the side wing while this drill's cooling down. It did not come out as straight as I would have liked. You can see this is the piece, the top piece is the part that was sheared, and it's got that nice straight line, and the bottom part is the part that I cut. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the scrap piece as sort of a guide to straighten up this line quite a bit. You can see a huge high spot there, and see if we can't get this a little bit more normalized. All right, guys, again, I apologize about not having the tripod so you guys can actually watch me do this, but this will kind of give you the idea of what we're working with here, right? So this is the winch plate. This is where the winch is going to go. It's going to tie in to these rails that go, these plates that go to the chassis, and connect via those 2 bolts, so that it'll get welded inside and outside and provide a lot of the structure. Now, obviously, there's going to be a faceplate that goes over all of this. Now, the challenge is this. The tolerances are really tight whenever I drew these things up, and these winglet type things aren't really matching with the, if I were to lift this up to tack it, you can see that there's like a gap there, that there needs to be some adjustment in these bolt holes to get everything to lay flat. Yeah, because alternatively, I guess I could tack it all up on the bench and then hope it works, but I would rather do it on the car for sure. So yeah, that one, yeah, it's a little lower than it should be, but you can still see it's like, it's off quite a bit. So I guess back to the drill and back to opening up these holes a little bit. Okay, so you can see that is much tighter there. What I did was I loosened up these bolts a little bit. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna work side to side. Of course, it's dark in there for you guys, sorry. I'm gonna work side to side, tacking this together, and then when I'm done, I want to make sure that everything is square, which sounds like the backwards way of doing it, but everything's just really precarious in here right now. This is the little welder that I'm using to tack weld everything. It's just a 110 flux core. Right, so you can see that I'm absolutely terrible at flux core. That little 110 did not jam enough heat in to really make those tacks stick. Later on, I borrowed a friend's welder. I went over to their house and used her welder. That worked perfectly, but yeah, in retrospect, I probably should have just done the rough cuts here and then, you know, done the whole welding over there. All right, so it's the next day, and you can see how the winch plate is situated along with the mounting brackets. What's really concerning is that little welder did not penetrate very well at all. Let's see if we can get this thing to focus for you. It's just not really working. So everything is like very precarious on here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna square all this up and put this on the front plate, get this welded in, or at least tacked in, but probably from the inside so that we don't have any of these ugly welds sticking out. And then I'll walk you through a problem that I discovered like while I built this thing. All right, so flipped it over. These are some ugly tack welds. You can see there's just spatter all over the place. I'm frankly just terrible at using either this machine or just this process. So hopefully they stuck well enough to, you know, to get bolted back up and hold on till the rest of the process is done so they can make it to finish welding. Okay guys, so it's a few days later. Obviously, this is a much better setup. I've never used this machine before, but it's a friend of mine's husband's. So yeah, we got the generator right here. So we'll run this at a full 220 and get this tacked up. Now, yesterday when I was loading it up into the car to move it, obviously it fell down and a lot of the stick welds broke off this entire, you know, quarter of a day's worth of work. So I'm gonna go around and re-tack everything with the bigger machine and then get everything bolted back on and try to figure this thing out. All right, guys, so I got these, excuse me, marked and placed up. And so you can see if you move it, I got two holes that I drilled to make sure that I can do those rosette welds on the back side. So overall, I think it's coming along. There's gonna be an awful lot of grinding and feathering, and I hate to admit this, possibly some Bondo in some places, but or body filler, but we'll see. So I'm gonna clean this up a little bit more and then take it back out and do some final weldings on for these attachments right here. All right, guys, so here's where we're at. Again, the marks over here, I did a little bit of finish sanding on a lot of it. There's still a lot more to do. Right where I'm at now is at the top part. So I have some 4x1/8 inch strap steel that I'm gonna use to make the top. I've tried this before. The first time when I did the quick mock-up, and it doesn't go that easily due to the curvature of the Disco's front end. So really what you have to do is you have to make this template to know, or what I have to do is make this template so that I know that this the steel right here will at least fit and I have enough of it. And then honestly, put the bumper back on and take a ton of measurements and figure out how to do the curvature, because it curves kind of somewhere in here. It kind of curves around the grill and I want it to go tight. And then it just kind of does, I don't remember what it does over here, but I remember it was kind of wacky, especially when it got back here. And if I remember right, this gets really thin in here. Now I did paint myself into a little bit of a corner because there is this big gap. It's probably 3/8 of an inch that I haven't quite figured out what I'm gonna do with, because it is visible. I may fill it in with weld and then sand it down, but I mean, that's kind of a critical juncture point. So I don't know, I haven't quite decided what I'm gonna do with that yet, but I hope to finish weld this whole thing today so I can do some sanding on it, and then there's gonna need to be a little bit of Bondo. You can see where there's, let's see if I can get this to zoom or focus. There's some little crevices where I need to skim, and then you can see over here where I need to do some finish sanding. And then down here, I mean, I did a little bit. If anyone wants to get under there and really look at my weld, that's fine. I don't really care. It is what it is at this point. But yeah, so as it comes around, did this finish out over here so that it has like a nice cap on it and everything. So yeah, all in all, it should be pretty cool. Right on. So I got these lights from Amazon. I'll try to remember to put a link in the description. They're just generic 4-inch lights. I wanted to give them a try. If they break, they break. If they don't break, they are, you know, whatever. I'll get some ARB or some other fancier ones. So to get those in, I drilled a pilot hole. So this is exactly where they're going. I'm going to use a 4-inch hole saw to actually cut this thing out. When I did my Jeep JK bumper, I actually countersunk in I think those lights were like 3 inches. So I countersunk in a 3-inch tube so that the light faced flush like this. With this one, I'm gonna just go ahead and drill the hole in straight and then tilt the light to face out this way. So not as elegant, but we'll see how it goes. It might not be too terrible. Worst case scenario, I cut the little tab mount off and, you know, and weld in a 4-inch ID tube. On that note, so I'm just basically making some little tabs out of 1-inch 12 gauge steel. That one's not gonna work because the dot's a little off. I'm gonna probably skip that in the video because you guys have all seen tabs made, and hopefully when I come back, it'll all be welded up and ready for a bit of filler. Alright, so after blowing through 4 different batteries on this 20 volt, I finally got the holes sorted out. So 2 of them here. So what this looks like is the light fits in perfectly like this, but the challenge is it's facing in the outward direction, right? So it's like a spread beam. I can't remember if these are spot or flood, but what I'll probably do, let's see if I can get this for you, is tilt it down a little bit so it points forward. And now I'm just gonna make some tabs and run over to a friend's house and do the final welding on this thing. There's a place where I did not penetrate very well. You can see it right here. So this is gonna get back over. I'm gonna jam a bunch of heat into that to get that nice and melted down. And I think that should be it. Oh, one other thing. So the body attaches to the side of these wings. There's a small, probably 1/2-inch hole. I'm gonna make a small tab off of this wing to attach that front fender up here so it doesn't wobble around, because I believe it is aluminum. So yeah, so just 4 more welds, 5 including that crack, and I should be ready to go. Final product. You see I got the holes in, shackle mounts, kind of did a rough sand on everything. I'm gonna have to go back, next time you guys see this, we'll, you know, have some filler on it. I'm probably gonna prime the back of it first, and then flip it over and, you know, do the finish work on everything else. So all in all, pretty happy. Those are the tabs for the body mounts. Those body mounts are actually right in this area right here underneath the fender. So that attaches it and lets it not get floppy like this. Yeah, so again, overall pretty happy. I got the light mounts in, you can see that here. Put a little support in on it too. Not the best welding, but you guys, it is what it is right now. But yeah, overall, really pretty happy with it. I mean, it's got a nice little winch plate built in. It's pretty stout. At the end of this, I'll give you guys the weight of this little girl. So this is what I'm gonna paint this with. Yeah, I'm gonna start off with some self-etching primer and then move on to this truck bed liner. I have some Raptor liner, but I don't really like how chunky it comes out, and I didn't really clean my gun that well. So I want to use this stuff because it's easy to touch up and respray. I know it's not as hard or as durable as Raptor liner or like a Kevlar liner or something like that, but yeah, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna paint this bottom in all the hard to reach places that'll let me just settle in on the face. All right, this is the final of the rear bumper, or the front bumper, sorry. I'm kind of doing them both at the same time, honestly. But this is how she turned out. You can see I'm all set up for a winch. I'm not happy about those tiger stripes where you can see the difference in texture. Hopefully you guys can see that on the camera. But yeah, really happy with the yellow lights, really happy with the wings. I like how it comes up and sort of terminates there. You can see it was a little short, unfortunately, but overall, I mean, I'm really happy with the way this turned out. Looks kind of silly with these small tires on it now, but that gets fixed fairly soon. The lights aren't really working. I don't know if it's because they're LEDs or if I miswired them, so I need to have a better look at that. But yeah, all in all, I think it came out pretty good. All right, guys, so that's pretty much it. It was a fairly simple process to make that thing. It obviously took quite a few more days than I was anticipating, but that's what happens when you haven't been welding in a long time. One of the things that was not shown on camera, and you guys probably figured this out by this point, was there was a slick of body filler that I put on all of the joints just to make sure that you know, everything looks smooth at the end. I really don't like using that, especially at joints, because you can't see, it's more difficult to see the cracks, but I erred on the side of sort of aesthetics on that one. So yeah, that's kind of how that turned out. The other thing that you probably, or you may have noticed on the camera, was like there was a lot going on and I was waiting for a lot of things to come in, and to optimize time, I actually had a couple projects going on at once. So the big one that you saw was the, or you may have seen, was the Terra Firma kit. So that was a 3-inch lift. That was a 3-inch lift. And I needed that to make room for the big 33s, and that involved a lot of other things. So I didn't show you how I did the Terra Firma lift because it's all over YouTube. There's plenty of places. A lot of good guys have shown it. So yeah, definitely. So that was on there. That took about 7 hours to do. And I did it by myself in a garage with a bunch of jacks and a bunch of jack stands, and it was a royal pain. That's even with like really nice power tools too, because I did it at my friend's place. So so yeah, the one thing about the Terra Firma kit, you guys open up every single box that you get, because it can become a bit of a problem. Like I installed one corner and I didn't even have the isolators on because I didn't even see the new isolators, and it's just, I had to take all that back apart. So just go through every single box. The other thing is I went with the stainless brake lines on that setup. I don't know if that was a huge difference maker. I don't think it was. I think I just had some air in the lines, but the brakes definitely work a lot better now, or they did until I put the 33s on, and now they're back to you know, the standard 200-foot stopping from 60. So yeah, all in all, that's the end of it. Until next time, guys, I really appreciate you guys watching it. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. There's gonna be a lot more content to come. I'm editing the videos now, and there's a lot more going on. Thanks a lot.